Breaking. Britain has just witnessed a political explosion live on national television. What began as a diplomatic interview has turned into one of the most humiliating moments in modern UK political history. Within seconds, Donald Trump, blunt, ruthless and unfiltered, shattered the calm of the BBC studio and tore into Prime Minister Keir Starmer with words that will echo through Westminster for years to come. The cameras didn't cut away, the audience didn't breathe, and for the first time since taking office, Starmer looked cornered, his confidence stripped, his authority collapsing live before millions of viewers. The former US president called him weak, dishonest, and a man who bows to Brussels before he stands for Britain. And that was just the beginning. Within hours, social media exploded. Hashtags like Starmer humiliated and Trump strikes back flooded every feed. In Parliament, Labour aides scrambled for damage control, while Tory MPs smirked from the shadows. Even King Charles was said to have been briefed within the hour, his advisers warning that the situation had become a full-blown diplomatic incident. But what exactly happened in that studio, and why did Trump target Starmer with such fury now and in front of the entire world? It began like any other high-stakes interview. The BBC's flagship political programme had invited Donald Trump to discuss transatlantic relations, the economy, and Britain's post-Brexit path. The producers expected theatre, maybe a few jabs at American politics, but what they got was political warfare. Sitting across from Keir Starmer, Trump smiled, a cold, calculated smile that British viewers have come to recognise as the calm before a storm. Starmer tried to hold his composure, rehearsed and polished, projecting the image of a serious leader. But within seconds, Trump broke the silence with 5 words that changed everything. "You've betrayed your own people." The studio froze. The host hesitated. Cameras zoomed in. Trump leaned forward, ears sharp, voice controlled, yet cutting. He accused Starmer of selling Britain's independence to European bureaucrats, of failing to defend free speech, and of turning the UK into a playground for weak leadership. The Prime Minister tried to interrupt, but Trump didn't stop. He raised his voice. "You talk about democracy," he said, "but your own citizens are screaming in the streets and you won't listen." The tension in the room was unbearable. Viewers watching at home described the moment as electric, terrifying and historic. Starmer, visibly rattled, attempted to pivot, to remind the audience of Britain's commitment to alliances, diplomacy and global cooperation. But every word sounded hollow against Trump's relentless barrage. "You begged for Washington's help when your economy crashed," Trump said, "and now you insult the very country that saved your banks." The words struck like thunder gasps, rippled across social media. Within minutes, clips flooded TikTok and X, racking up millions of views. Starmer's usually loyal press officers went silent. By midday, the shockwaves had reached Downing Street. Advisers were in crisis mode. Labour ministers cancelled public appearances, fearing the Prime Minister would be ambushed with questions about the confrontation. Reports surfaced that Trump's remarks were not off the cuff, but strategic. Insiders whispered that he had come armed with leaked intelligence. Documents showing that Starmer's office had privately criticised American policy in Ukraine. Whether true or not, it was enough to ignite a diplomatic firestorm. The US Embassy refused to comment. The BBC replayed the footage every hour, their headlines blaring. Trump versus Starmer, diplomatic disaster or political masterstroke? Polls released hours later showed an immediate drop in Starmer's approval rating. 40% of respondents said he looked weak. Another 20% said Britain's global reputation had been damaged beyond repair. And yet, behind the scenes, something darker was brewing, because sources inside Westminster claimed that this wasn't just an argument, it was part of a much bigger power struggle. Trump, now reshaping his global influence, had been quietly working with British Conservatives who wanted to dismantle Starmer's foreign policy agenda. This was never about one interview, it was about influence, control, and the question of who truly speaks for Britain on the world stage. As the hours passed, pressure mounted. The palace was briefed on potential diplomatic fallout. European allies expressed concern over the instability of the UK's leadership. Even members of Starmer's own party began to whisper that perhaps he had gone too far, too arrogant, too dismissive of the transatlantic alliance. And yet Starmer refused to apologise. He called Trump's remarks an embarrassment to diplomacy, insisting that Britain won't be bullied by former presidents. But his tone, his body language told another story. It was the tone of a man under siege. And then came the leak. A senior BBC insider revealed that during the commercial break, Trump turned to the Prime Minister and said quietly off camera, "You think you're safe here, but the truth is coming." No microphones caught it, but those who were there swore by it. It was the kind of line that sends chills down spines. The kind that suggests there's more beneath the surface than anyone realises. Now the question is spreading across Britain like wildfire. What did Trump mean by that? What truth was he hinting at? And how much longer can Keir Starmer hold his government together before the next revelation explodes? The newspapers screamed with headlines that read like battlefront dispatches. Trump exposes Starmer, Downing Street in panic. Diplomatic disaster engulfs Britain. Every television channel replayed the confrontation in slow motion, dissecting every pause, every twitch of Starmer's face. Commentators called it the moment the mask slipped. His calm facade had shattered in front of the world, and no spin doctor could glue it back together. Inside number 10, panic meetings went late into the night. Ministers whispered in corridors. Some wanted Starmer to issue a formal apology to the American public. Others urged him to retaliate, to strike back with the full weight of the British government's dignity. But there was no unity, only confusion. Aides described the atmosphere as funeral-like. Something had broken, not just politically, but morally. Britain's leadership suddenly looked exposed, uncertain, and scared. Across the Atlantic, Trump was jubilant. On his social media platform, he wrote, "Starmer disrespected America and got destroyed live on air." Millions of his followers shared it. His video clips from the BBC interview reached global audiences overnight, reshared by pundits, news outlets, even comedians. Yet behind the spectacle, there was something darker at play. Analysts noticed that Trump's comments about the truth coming out weren't just rhetoric, they were strategy. Because that very morning, a set of confidential documents began circulating among political journalists in Washington and London. The documents allegedly came from a foreign intelligence contact and revealed communications between Starmer's advisors and senior EU officials. Conversations about rejoining parts of the single market without public consent. If genuine, they would mean Starmer had been negotiating behind the backs of voters who believed Brexit was final. The timing couldn't have been more devastating. Trump's warning now looked like prophecy. Within hours, the country erupted. Radio talk shows went into meltdown. Angry callers accused Starmer of betrayal and selling out sovereignty. Protesters gathered outside Parliament, waving British flags and chanting, "Who runs Britain, Brussels or Starmer?" The opposition benches in Parliament seized their moment. Nigel Farage appeared on national TV declaring, "Trump just told the truth. The BBC wouldn't dare say Starmer is a globalist puppet." The comments spread like wildfire. Inside Labour headquarters, denial turned into desperation. A spokesperson dismissed the leaks as fabrications, but the damage was already done. Even loyal MPs began to distance themselves, quietly deleting old posts supporting Starmer's EU cooperation stance. One senior insider leaked a text message chain showing Labour strategists frantically trying to suppress the story. But the internet doesn't forget screenshots, flooded social media faster than they could be removed. Meanwhile, whispers began emerging that Trump's team had coordinated the timing of the leak with allies inside Britain's conservative media. Whether or not it was true, the perception was enough. Starmer's leadership now seemed cornered from all directions, attacked from abroad, abandoned at home, and mocked by his rivals. The public mood was turning fast. Polls showed a sharp 18-point drop in confidence within 48 hours. For the first time since becoming Prime Minister, Starmer looked vulnerable, and the sharks were circling. Then came the second blow. During an unplanned press briefing, a journalist shouted a question that echoed across the Downing Street courtyard. "Prime Minister, did you secretly discuss EU reintegration without voter approval?" Starmer froze. Cameras clicked. He began to answer, then stopped himself. That half-second hesitation was all the media needed. Within minutes, every network broadcast the clip under one headline: Starmer stumbles. The illusion of control shattered. His opponents smelled blood. Tory backbenchers demanded an inquiry into his conduct. Commentators called for his resignation. But perhaps the most chilling reaction came from the palace. According to one insider, King Charles privately expressed concern that Britain's moral credibility is being tested, though the palace did not issue a statement. The message was clear. The monarchy was watching closely, and the Prime Minister's troubles were no longer just political. They had become constitutional. Meanwhile, in Washington, Trump gave a triumphant interview to a major network. He smirked as he said, "I told the British people their leader was hiding something. Now you see, I was right." When asked if he coordinated the leak, he simply smiled. "I don't leak, I reveal." That quote alone sent shockwaves through both governments. Britain was boiling. Protest marches broke out in Manchester, Leeds, and even outside Buckingham Palace. Placards read, "We want the truth" and "Starmer out." Police clashed with angry crowds in Westminster Square. Labour MPs began openly questioning their leader's survival. The chaos felt less like politics and more like a reckoning. And through it all, one haunting question kept echoing. If Trump really does have more evidence, if he's holding something even darker, how much worse could this get? Britain stood on the edge. The Prime Minister's face filled every screen, pale, sleepless, cornered. The leak had become a wildfire and the pressure was unbearable. At 9 p.m, an emergency address was announced. Millions tuned in, expecting denial or damage control, but what they saw was something closer to surrender. Starmer's voice trembled. As he spoke, he insisted he had acted in the national interest, but his words felt hollow. Then, just as the cameras rolled, another shock hit. Trump posted a video mid-broadcast. In it, he revealed the final document, a letter allegedly signed by Starmer's senior advisor agreeing to restore economic alignment with the EU quietly before the next election. Within minutes, the internet erupted. The Prime Minister's broadcast was drowned out by Trump's thunder. Downing Street plunged into chaos. Cabinet members walked out. 2 ministers resigned. Live on air, crowds surrounded Parliament shouting, "Traitor!" Police struggled to hold the line. The nation was splitting apart, half demanding justice, half begging for calm. And through the noise, one truth became clear. This wasn't just about one man. It was about trust, power, and the soul of Britain itself. By dawn, whispers spread that Starmer was preparing to step down. The king had been briefed. The palace released a single line. "His Majesty is concerned for the unity of the realm." Silence followed. Heavy, final, unforgettable. Trump, meanwhile, declared victory from afar. The truth wins again. The BC called it the greatest political humiliation in modern history. The question now echoing through every home, every headline, every restless conversation across the nation was simple. If the truth can bring down a prime minister overnight, what secret could destroy the next one?